Hello and welcome to the Alcohol Recovery Show, where we discuss practical, actionable steps for anyone who wants to achieve their dream of getting and staying well, happy and free from any form of alcohol dependence. Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're talking about something that catches many people by surprise in recovery. You quit drinking, you get through the withdrawals, you start feeling physically better, and you expect life to become simpler. But then, suddenly, you find yourself eating biscuits at midnight, scrolling social media for hours, spending money you don't have, obsessing over a relationship, or binge watching television until 2 a.m. You might think, what's wrong with me? I thought alcohol was the problem. But the truth is that for many of us, alcohol wasn't the only issue. Alcohol was simply the most obvious symptom. When we remove alcohol, other coping mechanisms often rush in to fill the void. And today I want to talk about what I call addiction whack-a-mole, the way one behaviour pops up as soon as another one disappears. Most importantly, I want to reassure you that this doesn't mean you're failing. In many ways, it means you're finally beginning to see what was there all along. One of the biggest myths about addiction is that it's about the substance. For many of us, it isn't. Alcohol was often doing a job. It was helping us cope with stress. It was numbing anxiety. It was soothing loneliness. It was helping us escape difficult emotions. Perhaps it was quietening shame or helping us avoid grief. Perhaps it was giving us relief. And when we remove alcohol, all those needs still remain. The stress doesn't magically disappear. The loneliness doesn't vanish. The anxiety doesn't pack its bags and move out. Instead, the mind starts looking for another solution. The brain says, fine, no wine, then let's have 6 donuts instead. No donuts? Let's spend 3 hours online shopping. No shopping? Well, let's check our phone every 30 seconds. The behaviour changes, but the underlying need remains the same. Really, addiction isn't only just a search for pleasure, it's actually a search for relief, and that's an important distinction. Most addictive behaviours begin as solutions. They might help us to feel different, to distract us, comfort us, soothe us. And the problem comes when we become dependent on them. Recovery invites us to become curious about what we're actually seeking. What am I trying to avoid? What need am I trying to meet? What discomfort am I trying to escape? These questions are far more useful than simply asking, why can't I stop doing this? Now let's look at some of the common replacement addictions. These are the substances that often appear after we've stopped drinking. Food. Food is perhaps the most common replacement addiction because unlike alcohol, we can't simply quit eating. We need to eat. Food is necessary, and that makes it more complicated. Many people discover that once alcohol disappears, sugar cravings go through the roof, and that's partly biological. Alcohol contains huge amounts of sugar, and the brain wants compensation, but it can also be emotional. Food provides comfort, reward, distraction. It might fill empty moments. And for many people, food becomes the new way to regulate emotions. That's why I wrote Mindfulness for Binge Eating and the 10-Day Binge Eating Detox Plan. Both books grew out of the recognition that recovery isn't always about the substance itself. Sometimes it's about learning how to sit with emotions without automatically reaching for something to change them. Whether it's alcohol or food, the underlying work is often remarkably similar. It's often about learning to pause, learning to notice cravings, to tolerate discomfort, to respond rather than react. Another common substitute is spending. Buying something gives us a little dopamine hit. For a brief moment, we might feel excited, hopeful, rewarded, important. And then the feeling fades and we look for the next purchase. Recovery often reveals how many emotional needs we were trying to meet through acquiring things. Relationships. This one surprises many people. Sometimes we could actually become addicted to people. That's not healthy connection. It's emotional dependency. The constant need for reassurance, validation, attention, approval, contact, messages. Someone else's presence becomes our emotional regulation system. And when they pull away, we crash. When they're attentive, we feel wonderful. And this can be every bit as compulsive as alcohol. Another addiction that can trip people up is the productivity addiction. And perhaps it's one the recovery communities don't always talk about enough. And that's around the areas of work, achievement, busyness. Many recovering people can become productivity addicts. They fill every spare minute. They become obsessed with goals, projects, self-improvement, success. And on the surface, it can look really healthy. After all, society rewards it. But sometimes constant busyness serves the same purpose alcohol once served. It keeps us from feeling. It keeps us from slowing down. It keeps us from facing ourselves. The question isn't whether the activity looks good. The question is whether we're using it to avoid something. Now, modern life provides endless opportunities to escape and distract ourselves. When a difficult feeling arises, within seconds we can reach for a phone. We can scroll, watch, click, refresh, repeat, and hours disappear. Now, the problem isn't the technology itself. The problem is when we become afraid of silence, afraid of boredom, afraid of being alone with our own thoughts. Recovery teaches us that boredom is not an emergency. Neither is discomfort. Neither is loneliness. These experiences are part of being human. So why do these type of replacement addictions emerge? Well, once we stop drinking, recovery creates space, and space can feel uncomfortable. For years, alcohol occupied time. It occupied our thoughts, our energy, our routines, our identity. And when alcohol leaves, there's a gap. And nature hates a vacuum. The mind hates a vacuum. Something usually rushes in. That's why recovery isn't simply about subtraction, taking away the alcohol. It's about replacement. It's not replacing one addiction with another. It's replacing unhealthy coping strategies with healthier ones. Now, what's the difference between pleasure and numbing? Now, here's a helpful question to ask. Am I enjoying this? Or am I using this? There's nothing wrong with enjoying food. There's nothing wrong with enjoying shopping occasionally or watching television. There's certainly nothing wrong with being in a relationship or using social media. The issue is your intention. Are we choosing the activity, or is the activity choosing us? Are we present, or are we trying to disappear? Healthy pleasures enrich our life, and addictive behaviours help us to escape it. One of the greatest recovery skills is simply learning to sit with yourself without fixing anything or distracting yourself or numbing or reaching out for something. And at first this can feel very uncomfortable because many of us spent years avoiding ourselves. But gradually we discover something remarkable. Feelings do pass. Cravings pass. Urges pass. Thoughts pass. We don't have to obey every single impulse that appears. We can choose to observe it, breathe through it, let it move through us. That's where genuine freedom begins. Recovery is more than abstinence. And it's important to remember that recovery is bigger than simply not drinking. Some people stop drinking but continue living exactly the same way, with the same patterns of avoidance, the same compulsive behaviours, the same fear, the same self-criticism. But recovery invites us to go deeper, to ask, what am I really hungry for? Connection, reset, a purpose, acceptance, love, peace, or do I simply need to go to bed early? Because often the thing we're reaching for isn't actually alcohol. Alcohol was just the delivery system. So if you're noticing replacement addictions emerging, please don't use that discovery as an exercise to beat yourself up. It's incredibly common. And in fact, it often represents progress. You're becoming aware. In the very early days of stopping drinking, if you feel that you need to eat a few sweets, there's nothing wrong with that, but just be aware of it. If you're spotting patterns that were hidden before, awareness is the beginning of change. It's not the end. Many people spend years believing they have 10 separate problems. Perhaps food or shopping or gambling or whatever. But eventually they realise that they have one core issue showing up in 10 different ways. The core issue isn't necessarily alcohol or food or shopping or social media. The issue is learning how to care for ourselves without escaping ourselves. So as I finish today, I'd like to leave you with this thought. Recovery isn't about becoming perfectly disciplined. It's not about never craving anything. It's not about eliminating every unhealthy impulse. But it is about becoming conscious, about noticing, about asking ourselves some questions like, what do I actually need right now? Sometimes the answer is food. Sometimes it's sleep or rest or relaxation. Sometimes it's connection. Sometimes it might just be to have a good cry and process some difficult emotions. The more honest we answer those questions, the less we need addictions to answer them for us. And if you're finding yourself replacing alcohol with food, and you see yourself getting into a binge eating pattern or emotional eating, remember that you're not alone. It's an incredibly common experience in recovery. And that's one of the reasons I wrote Mindfulness for Binge Eating and the 10-day binge eating detox plan, to help people understand the emotional and psychological side of cravings and develop healthier ways of responding to them. Recovery isn't just about removing alcohol, it's about building a life where we no longer need to escape. So thank you for joining me today. Take good care of yourselves, be patient with your progress, and remember that awareness is not failure. Awareness is where healing begins. So until next time, stay well. Thanks so much for being here. Bye for now. Bye.